Grant, is your bracket perfect?
Oral Roberts spent my entire bracket.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm sure. I got all of these wrong. All right, do we have your attention here? All right, we're going to go through, kind of hit 9-6 again. It takes a couple of days for this to sink in. I know you had 1 through 9, just had to do 1 through 9 odd. Let's just take a quick look at a couple of these. So number 1, what was Morgan? What was the original problem?
X plus 2, X minus 8.
Okay, if they give it to you in the parentheses already, then then it's a little bit easier. All you got to do is you say, all right, take each piece, set each piece equal to 0. And then you solve, and then we subtract 2. I get x equals -2. I add 8. I get x equals 8. That's how we get those two answers, -2, 8. So if it's already in those parentheses, okay, then that's all we got to do is set each of those. Now they're not all that way. So like number 7, okay. What does number 7 look like? Sam, what's the original problem?
I got x squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0.
Okay, if you now have a quadratic, you have to factor it. So that means this, what multiplies to get -12 adds to get 4? So it's going to be x plus 6 times x minus 2. Once you have that, you get x plus 6 equals 0, x minus 2 equals 0, subtract 6, get x equals -6, add 2, x equals 2. Now, normally they put the answers in smallest to greatest. I'm not going to be too concerned about that as long as you have both. Okay, that would be the key thing. All right, what I do need to do now is go ahead and pull out those, because we didn't finish those notes from Friday. Pull out those guided notes and say 9-6 at the top. I gave a few of you them here. I don't know if we did I give them? I didn't get one. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I can get you another one. I wasn't here first, I didn't get that. You weren't?
Yeah, I don't. Wait, you're an idiot. Shut.
Oh, yeah. Do more?
Yes.
Okay. So we need one more. What's that?
That was the one. Knock him right over. It's hilarious.
You get knocked over, but you don't.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
exactly.
If I was prepared, I would. I'm gonna hit a man when he's turned around. Hit a man when he's turned around. You know me.
You weren't turned around.
I didn't hit you, I ran into you. What do you mean?
He didn't really perfectly.
What?
Just ran into you, like, actively.
Really doesn't matter. You hit a man.
You hit a man when he's turned around.
You're no man.
All right, listen up here. Quiet, please. All right, this is on the bottom of the front page. Even though we've already done it, I just want to walk through it again. So flip it over to the front. Okay, this is on the bottom. And we did number 1, so just pay attention to it. If you need to fix anything, fix anything. So if you have this case here, you got to factor it. X squared minus 6x plus 8. What multiplies to 8 adds to -6. Okay, Colin?
-4, -2.
So it's -4 and -2. Back here behind Joe and next to Zane, we do have a new student who will be with us. She's not new to the lake, but Audie will be with us here for the 4th 9 weeks So just as, you know, different people are coming in and out, Audie will be starting with us here. So I think most of you know her. If not, introduce yourself at some point. But she'll be with us. Once you have this, this is now where we use that zero product property. We say, all right, what makes each of these zero? And so you do x minus 4 equals 0, and x minus 2 equals 0, and we solve and get x equals 4, and we solve and get x equals 2. And now we write our answers as 2, 4. We use these braces because they're not an ordered pair, it's not parentheses. So that should be your two answers. 2 and 4 or 4 and 2. Okay. So if you got that, all you need to do is factor it like we have. All right, number 2 is similar to that. I'm going to leave that one. I just wanted to highlight it. So flip it back over. This is a little bit of harder factoring one. Okay. If you got that number for the x squared, remember we multiply first times last, 3 times 1, which is 3. And we say, what multiplies to get 3 and adds to get thank you. You missed the banquet?
Unfortunately.
Multiplies to equal 3, adds to equal -4. And what did we write down for those? What did we write down for those? -3 and -1, right? Whoops, that should be -1. And so we do this, we rewrite this as 3x squared minus 3x minus 1x plus 1 equals 0. And we do our grouping. What's that, 3x? And don't forget, that's going to be x minus 1. Make that a -1. Gives me x minus 1. And so we got to get to that point. Now, once we get to that point, what do? We split it apart. So I get x minus 1 equals 0. I get 3x minus 1 equals 0. Add 1. You get x equals 1. Add 1. Now, if it doesn't come out to a whole number, okay, keep it as a fraction. Just write it as a fraction. So that would be 1/3 and 1. Okay, did we do number 4? Looks like it. Okay, let's take a look at that next one there that's not on there. Let's take a look at number 5 there. It's slightly different. How is that one different?
It doesn't have a third number.
Doesn't have a third number. Okay, so no, you can't say what multiplies to get 8 and adds because you don't have that third number. But it does have. I want you to think GCF because this is actually probably easier if you see what to do. So what's the GCF between those two terms? What do they both have in common? They both have an x. That GCF comes out. So take the x and put it on the outside. Divide both of these by x. And you're going to get x plus 8 in parentheses. X plus 8 in parentheses. Okay, that's the hard part. What do you do from there? Once you have that. All right. Morgan, any ideas? You're not sure? No, you don't want to distribute because we're just going to undo what we did. Christian?
Do like the what add or what multiplies to get 8 adds to get 1.
Don't need to do that. We're actually done the hard part. Not yet. Not yet. We got to do one thing first. All right. Do we have 2 things being multiplied? Alex? You can do that. That won't hurt anything at all. She says put parentheses around this x. Now that might make it a little bit clearer because I do have two things that are being multiplied. And once you have two things that are multiplied, we set them both equal to 0. Now, when you set this one equal to 0, it's just x equals 0, and that's your answer. You don't need to do anything with it. But then in this case here, you got x plus 8 equals 0. And at that point, now you subtract 8. And I get x equals -8. So my two answers are 0 and -8. Those are your two answers. So if you only got two terms, think GCF. Go ahead, Mr.
With that first one, x equals 0, I mean, it's just, that means 0 squared, so 0 times 0 is 0, plus 8 times 0, which is 0, so now I have 0 plus 0. Well, my public school math tells me that's 0 as well, okay? So it's pretty relatively simple. Don't make these ones more complicated than they have to be. They're really easier than what we've seen before with the trinomials.
All right, now number 6. This you can do this two ways. There's the hard way and the easy way. Easy way or easier way, find the GCF. What will go into all three? You got 2, 12, and 14. What goes into all three of those? 2. And what do we always say? If your first term is negative, make your GCF negative. So I'm going to make my GCF -2, and I'm going to divide all of those by -2. And when I do that, it gives me x squared as my first term. What will be my second term? Okay, it'll now be -12 divided by -2, which is plus 6x. 14 divided by -2, which is -7. X squared plus 6x minus 7. Okay, we want that will factor again. That becomes a problem like we did on the front. What multiplies to -7 adds to get 6. Okay, what multiplies to -7? This -2 will still be on the outside. And to multiply to get -7 and add to get 6, one of them's plus 7, and one of them would be, the other one would be, Sam? -1. All right, so make sure you got that down. That -2 kind of makes things a little bit easier, but does that -2 have a variable with it? It does not, so it will not be part of the answer. You do not need to worry about that. This x up front here, that was a variable, so we had to set that equal to 0. You could set -2 equal to 0, but that doesn't make any sense because it doesn't work. So if you recognize that, you don't even need to worry about it. We do need to set x plus 7 equal to 0. We do need to set x minus 1 equal to 0. And so subtract 7, add 1, and you get those two answers, -7, 1.
Yes. Practice test or?
No. They're gonna have a worksheet.
Okay, yeah.
Ooh, who you got? Jordan. You have a swap. All right, so once you get to that, those are your two answers. All right, now that last one here. Now they're gonna come up like on the end of course test. They're gonna try and create a little scenario to see if you can figure out what to do. But this is just exactly what we did before. It said, now I don't know if you can draw as well as I can, but there's your diver and there's the water. Okay, the height in feet of a diver above the water can be modeled by that function, h of t equals negative 16t squared plus 8t plus 8. Where t is time in seconds after the diver jumps off a platform. Find the time it takes for the diver to reach the water. Well, when he jumps, it looks like this. Okay? And then it hits the water right here. Okay, so that's a what type of graph? It's a parabola. And we want to know when it hits the water. Well, what's the height when it hits the water? The height is 0. So take your equation, negative 16t squared plus 8t plus 8, and set it equal to 0, because we want to know when that height is 0. So it's just a fancy way of getting you to take some equation and set it equal to 0. But after that, everything's the same. There is a GCF, which will make life a little bit easier. Look through there. What could our GCF be? What goes into all three terms? Preston, what do you think?
8.
8, but and I'm going to ask you to do one thing here. Make it
Negative 8.
negative 8, because the first term's negative. All right, so we're going to divide everything by negative 8. And when I do that, I get negative 8 on the outside. 2t squared minus t minus 1 equals 0. All right, I'll give you first shot. You see if you can factor that. If you're not sure, just wait. We'll do it together. But try it. See what it factors into. You what?
I can't try.
Well, then wait. Then wait.
Even if I wanted to.
Anyway,
Bigger than the biggest one.
and wait.
Bigger than.
No, I guess it's back. All right, hurry up.
Christian, you have no room to talk. Hate you so much.
Now, I give you a hint. You don't need to worry about the negative 8. Multiply 2 times negative 1, and you get negative 2. And we want two numbers that multiply to equal negative 2, and at the same time add to equal the middle number, which would be a negative 1. And those two numbers are negative 2 and positive 1. And now remember what we do with this is and I'll keep this negative 8 out here for now, is 2t squared minus 2t minus, or plus t minus 1. GCF for the first one would be 2t. GCF for there would be 1. So I got 2t, t minus 1 plus 1 times t minus 1. They both have a t minus 1, right? So that goes out in front.
Popular today.
All right, what do we, now technically what should still go out in front? Okay, there's still, what was our GCF? Zach? Negative 8. Now for this problem, we're more concerned with solving it. So we want to set, and since that doesn't have a variable, I don't need to set it equal to 0. So I take t minus 1 equal to 0. I take 2t plus 1 equals to 0. And solve both of those. So you add 1, and I get t equals 1, subtract 1, and I get t equals negative 1/2. All right, read back through the problem, look at what you got at this point, and think, what's the answer? Read back through the problem, look at what we got, And what would you give me as the answer? Okay, Evan. No? No? Wait, what's the question asked? What is the original question asked? Find the time it takes the diver to reach the water. How long is it gonna take the diver to reach the water? What would you tell me? It has to do with those two numbers. Okay, here's the case. You cannot go backwards in time. Even though I got a negative answer, you cannot take a negative 1.5 seconds. Okay, so your answer would be, you would reach the water in 1 second. Okay, so you gotta read through the problem and get an understanding of what's it asking. And so for this case here, since it's a word problem, those answers may not apply. So we throw out that negative 1/2 because you can't go backwards. You can't do negative 1/2 seconds. Okay, for that. All right, want to give you some time to work on this. I'm going to hand out a worksheet. Some of you here, you're going to need to do it on a separate sheet because it doesn't have enough room.
There we go, that's the topics. This is what Josh is doing now.
Yeah, Josh, you want to go, and then you want to take,
Yeah, Josh, Joe, go to the clinic.
What'd you get?
you, Joe,
Joe, here. Hang on to this just in case. Yeah, I don't. I think you do that.
I'm just making sure.
Show.
What do you want?
Everybody got a worksheet?
I wish I didn't.
Okay.
We do the work on separate paper.
Yeah,
We
do the work on
put the answer on here.
Yeah.
Alright, who picked the?
Okay.
Jordan.
Yeah.
Go Mr. Shea,
Yeah,
you were missing Friday.
Yeah. Just head over to the school soon.
I got it.
Yeah.
Christian. Christian, I know what you're doing. No? All right, go over to,
I'll take my stuff.
yeah, take your stuff. Take your stuff. Hey, I'll help you out as we move through here. That number 1, don't make it hard.
We got to
Okay.
do all problems.
Just the ones that were listed here. Yeah, hold on, you gotta do that separate sheet. Trust me. All right, so for number 1, okay, they already have it, and they kind of already did the work for you. So don't make that harder. So x equals 1 and x equals 5, you just have to add it to both sides. So really number 1, like I said, don't make that hard. Number 3, you already have it in the factored form, so set each of those equal to 0.